All right, these are 1.4 part 2 notes, rational expressions continued. The objective today is to simplify compound fractions, and our definition for today is a compound fraction, which is a fraction in which the numerator, the denominator, or both are themselves fractional expressions, aka they have fractions within them. So it's fractions within fractions, that makes it a compound fraction. So if we look at example 6, we will see that we have to simplify a compound fraction down there. And if you'll see that there's a fraction in the numerator and there's a fraction in the denominator. So that makes it a compound fraction. So there's a couple different ways to simplify, and we'll be doing a couple different examples today. So for this example, I'm just going to write some steps out on the side. What we're going to do is combine terms in numerator to single fraction. Then we're going to do the same with the denominator. Then we are going to invert, which means flip, the second part and multiply. Because it's a division, we're going to flip it and multiply. So we will go ahead and practice this. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the top and just kind of do it separately. So I am going to make a little note right here. I'm going to do the numerator. Okay, so basically we need them to have the same denominator. So we're going to change this to x over y plus, and then instead of 1, we're going to multiply that 1 times y over y, which is going to get us y over y. Okay, so basically, I can show the steps for that. X plus 1, our least common denominator is y. Okay, so we need this side stays the same. And then 1 becomes, we're basically multiplying it times y over y. And that becomes y over y. Okay, so then that means that the numerator becomes x plus y on the top. And then the bottom is just y. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. Oops, we're going to do the same thing with the denominator. Okay, so we've got 1 minus y over x. Our least common denominator is going to be x, right? Because there's an x on the bottom here, and we can easily make this side have an x on the bottom. We just multiply times x over x. So this becomes x over x minus y over x, which is x minus y over x. Okay, so now we can combine our numerator and our denominator. So that's our next step, invert and multiply. So let's put those back together. Let's take our original. So our numerator is, instead of that x over y plus 1, we now have it as x plus y over y, that's our numerator, all over x minus y over x. Okay, and then our third step is invert and multiply, which means we're going to flip that bottom fraction and multiply instead. So it's going to be x plus y over y, so times this fraction flipped, which is x over x minus y. So our final answer is just going to be show our combined fraction. And you leave it like that. You don't need to multiply everything out. And that's the final answer for that example. That is one solution. So that is solution 1. So I'm actually going to go up here and write that this was solution 1, okay? There's also a solution 2 that we can do. Okay, so I'm going to write it here. Solution 2 is find the LCD, least common denominator, of all fractions. Then you multiply numerator and denominator by that. And that's it. Okay, so we're going to try that. So I'm going to rewrite the problem down here. We have x over y plus 1 over 1 minus y over x. Okay, so in this case, we're looking at all of our denominators, which is this y and this x. So our LCD of the whole thing, I'm going to put it over here. Our LCD of the whole giant compound fraction is x times y. So basically we're going to multiply the top times xy and the bottom times xy. Okay, so now we're going to get when we multiply the top times xy, we're going to get x times xy, which is x squared y over y plus xy. Then on the bottom, we're going to get xy minus xy squared over x. And then stuff cancels. That's why the least common denominator works. So this fraction goes away, and then this fraction down here goes away. So actually it's going to be x squared plus xy on the top, and then the bottom is xy minus y squared on the bottom. And you can simplify that. Take out an x on the top, take out a y on the bottom, and you get the same answer as we did above. Okay, so there's two different ways to solve that kind of problem. So that's the same answer here and here. So it means we did good, did the right thing. All right, and then the last example, so that was only one example with two different ways to solve it. And we have another example of a compound fraction down here. So we have 1 over a plus h minus 1 over a all over h. So basically we're going to start by combining the fractions in the numerator using a common denominator. So we're only going to be talking about the numerator. We've got to figure that out before we can do anything else. So we're going to find a common denominator there. So I'm just going to write the numerator again here. And I'm just going to rewrite it without the h in the denominator. We're just talking about the numerator. Okay, so we need a common denominator or least common denominator. It doesn't matter, you can say whatever. And I'm just going to multiply everything. That a and a plus h is our common denominator, which means I need to multiply this side times a and this side times a plus h. Okay, this shouldn't be that new. But if you're having trouble with it, feel free to email me or message me. So I'm going to get a minus, so remember this minus actually needs to be distributed to both things there. So I'm going to get a minus h, and then the bottom stays the same. Okay, so I'm actually going to simplify that right now just for ease in the future. So I'm going to a minus a is 0, minus h is negative h, and then the bottom stays the same. So that's my new numerator. Okay, so then I'm going to go put that back over here with my entire fraction. So I'm going to go put everything back together. So my numerator is now negative h over a plus h, and my denominator is just h. Okay, that's great because now I can invert the denominator and multiply. So instead of dividing, I'm going to have negative h over a plus h. And then instead of dividing by h, we're going to times 1 over h. Okay, so instead of dividing by h, we're going to times 1 over h. And actually, if you look at that, this h on the top cancels with this h on the bottom because they are their own terms and there's nothing attached to them. So what you have left is a negative 1 on the top and a plus h on the bottom. Don't multiply everything out, leave it simplified like that. And that is your final answer for example number 7. So these things you just need to kind of mess around, figure out some common denominators, look at smaller groups of fractions first, combine those, and then go to the bigger fraction and then start combining all of that together. Okay? Take notes on this, upload your notes, and do the homework assigned for today.